Hello and welcome to the Biz Dev Podcast, the podcast about developing your business. I'm your host this time, Gary Voigt. David's away this week again, but let's be honest, no one's really going to miss him. So we're here to discuss the same topics we always discuss, everything from tech news, software development, small business, startups, leadership, culture, strategies for growth. And it sounds like a lot, but it's all kind of under the same umbrella, and we'll try to keep you entertained as we go. Today we have a very special guest, returning guest. He wins the award for most returning guest. Always there for me when I need him in a pinch, or if someone else cancels. But welcome back to the podcast, Juan, the dev guy you know from before.
The dev guy you know from before.
Yes.
Well, at least I'm the very special guest dev guy from before.
Yeah, I was going to do the very special guest, like a different podcast I listen to, but I didn't want to copy.
Special guest.
Yeah. This week, I wanted to bring up something that we already covered a few episodes ago in episode 50. It was weird when I was scrolling around the internet and I saw it this morning. There's an article that I found in Fast Company, and it's about pretty much what we talked about, spying on your employees with spyware and tracking software to, kind of keep an eye on them, what they're doing on their screens. And a lot of companies were trying to employ this method to keep an eye on remote work employees, but it's bled through some of these companies just to anybody in a cubicle, in the office, other offices, and throughout. And we were kind of railing against it. When I say we, I mean me and David, because we thought immediately it sets the tone for mistrust, and it really just kills culture inside of a company. And, we stuck to our guns about how we felt about it. He kind of approached from a hiring perspective, you want to find the right people. But even though in this time right now, it's hard to find anybody because there are a lot of jobs available out there. So, a lot of people they can pick and choose between where they want to go. And while the companies try to, squeeze the most productivity as possible from these people, who's going to stick around in a place that they feel like they're being spied on? So a columnist for Fast Company, and let me get her name right, Amanda Richardson, wrote an article very similar to what we were talking about. I suggest you guys go read it. We'll put the link in the show notes. But two things she said in that article that really stood out to me, and then I want to get your opinion about spying on employees, since you would, fall under that umbrella of if Big Pixel were to put spyware tracking software on employees and devs' computers. Her first quote that I found really cool was, "An hour of good thinking time, the kind that really allows you to puzzle through an issue, is 10 times better than spending 60 minutes furiously banging around on your keyboard to send emails out just to look busy." David and I talked about this too. It's anything from sketching out ideas, writing ideas, or just contemplating different scenarios in which you can attack and solve a problem. Doesn't always involve you being on your computer typing and moving your mouse around. So the tracking software we were referencing was one that took screenshots every 10 minutes, and then through AI would predict or determine if you were actually working or not working. And then it would dock those 10 minutes between screenshots from your pay. And then another quote from Amanda Richardson in the same article, and she wrapped it up with, she said, "I could think of literally 100 more useful places to invest your time, money, and energy. So let's just get rid of tracking software." I agree with that 1,000%.
And I was going to say that it's worse if you're including AI, putting AI in the mix there, because now you're bringing in a machine that is supposed to be unbiased, but it is built with biases in place. The people that
of course, biases that are going to help and try to, do the employer's bidding, and it's not always
exactly,
an objective look at it.
Because the one thing is that I've been in companies that they sort of micromanage, not to that extent probably, but that they are on top of you. That the manager is always keeping an eye on what their employees are doing on the floor, making sure that they are working. They aren't just lingering around talking to each other for no reason for 3 hours. That's fine, I understand, but it's still, even though to that degree it can't be an annoyance, it can't be counterproductive. There's a person that knows their team that is at least gauging based on how they know their team, whether or not they are being productive, whether or not they are doing their work, and if they are crunching, out the expected amount of output that they are. But if you hand this off to a machine, it's an entirely different thing, because now you are beholden to your computer overlords, which is not that dissimilar from where you're applying to a job and nobody actually reads the resume. It's a machine that filters it out. So
yeah, that's another thing. The machines that just look through your resume for keywords and then put you to the top of the list based on how many keywords specifically are in your resume. There was actually years ago when I kind of was transitioning from the media company to working freelance. There was a situation where in order to collect my severance or whatever you want to call it, like my exit money, I had to also do that through the state and apply for unemployment in order to, like, it was a little weird the way the company did it, where they would only my unemployment would be half of the compensation, and then they would give me the rest of the compensation for that after. Anyways, long story short, in the unemployment office, they expect you to go through these classes, and you have to learn how to write resumes, and you have to, make sure that you apply to, like, I think it was five or 10 jobs per week, something like that, in order to collect so that your status was active. And the resume writing was hilarious because it is literally like just writing metadata for SEO keywords, like from back in the day on websites that you would just keep hidden, but you'd have, all those meta tags hidden in the homepage. But it was like that. Like you had to say certain types of software, certain keywords related to the industry, the job, the company, and they had lists and lists and lists for you to pick from, like it was a thesaurus. It was crazy.
And the thing is that as a developer, the first thing I think of is like, how can I game that system? How can I turn this and make the machine work for me? And I'm obviously not the only one that's thought this, because there are a bunch of tools now available for specifically resumes, where it's a Chrome extension. You have the job posting up on your on the tab. The thing analyzes your resume when you upload it to the extension, and it tells you, you're about 40% there, that you're hitting all the keywords that you probably should. How about you add these list of words to your resume, and now you're going to hit above that things like 65% threshold, where we'll guarantee you it's going to go through the machine. And it's not that hard to even game some of these systems that keep track of what you're doing on your computer. I know when I used to freelance with Upwork, the app on the if you work hourly, that is, the app on your computer will take screenshots every 10 minutes, and it'll let the client know this guy was actually working. It'll track your clicks, your key presses, and all that stuff, just to see whether or not you were productive. That's not that hard to game. You can download an application on your Mac that would, like, you can cycle through a bunch of different apps and simulate keystrokes and key presses and stuff like that, and it becomes this whole dystopian thing where you're battling the machine, and you're trying to just satisfy the machine, and like the article is saying, it becomes less about being productive and more about
you're getting productivity out of your employees, but their productivity is in being anti-productive for you.
Yeah.
So, exactly. I mean, it's really shooting yourself in the foot. Your employees are using their knowledge and skills to make sure that you're not going to spy on them while they're working for you, instead of them using their knowledge and skills for you. Yeah. And there was a few mentions of the ways you can cheat the system and stuff like that in the article. And while it is creative, and imagine being a company that writes custom software to defeat spy tracking software, and then that company uses spy tracking software to make sure you're productive in finding ways to defeat the spy tracking software. That'd be awesome. It's like Inception.
And like the article is claiming, you can. Productivity, I don't think, is measured necessarily in time. As a developer, I can spend 4 hours trying to solve a problem and then write out 4 lines of code that solve that issue. But it took me an hour, a couple hours to get there, to actually figure out that was the solution to my issue. And if we're measuring the amount of stuff that I do, the amount of actual lines that I write or emails that I send out, that's not being productive. That's not getting the job done.
Yeah, that's assembly line stuff. Like, you can't expect assembly line work in, I guess, a structured assembly line style time of work in a position that actually requires a lot more intelligent thought. But nothing against people who work on an assembly line.
Of course
at the same
not.
time, you get into a rhythm, get into a pattern, and then just naturally you develop that skill, and then you can get faster at that skill. But solving problems that are unique every single time is a skill to solve the problem, but it's never going to get faster if the problems get more complex.
Yeah, which is hilarious because there are jobs that are, that require that sort of flow, where there is a bit of a repetitive nature to it, and those are definitely not the jobs that are getting spied on. The ones that are getting spied on are the ones that are not, that not follow this type of flow, and that it's more of like critical thinking than it is actual like physical labor. And
yeah, but I think I'm sorry to interrupt. The thing that brought this to the forefront that made me and David talk about it was this happened to an executive level position.
Oh, wow.
A woman who was making over $200K a year. And then after she transitioned into that position and was working for, I think, like a month or whatever, she noticed that her paychecks weren't reflecting her time. And then she asked about it, and they were like, well, you were docked this, and there's a chunk of time you were here according to the bots, So yeah, it actually,
wow.
I still don't know if that was an intentional move by the company or if it was just like IT forgot to remove that from you. You know what I mean? But
I'm sure that incentivizes productivity.
Yeah, especially when you're at that high level of a position. Only a few people above you, and they're still spying on you like you're clocking in and clocking out at the bread factory.
Man, it's some dystopian stuff, honestly. It's scary.
I'm sure you're familiar with, everybody has heard of the hustle culture, right? Over the last couple of years, it seemed like there was a phenomenon that everybody was on social media and in the tech industry was promoting this hustle culture of like no days off, rise and grind, work your hardest every day. It doesn't matter about your hours, follow your passion. And then eventually after that, there was this whole different trend about burnout. And of course they were related. You hustle too much, you end up with burnout because you've just done too much for too long. So now I would say in my mind, the third level to this trend is now quiet quitting, which is just another social media buzzword for in the event an employee of a company realizes that they have to find a work-life balance, and the more they can stop that work life from slowly creeping into their home life, the better off they are, mental health wise, and the better off they are with not having burnout and actually not getting frustrated or depressed every time they had to start working again. I mean, it might actually reignite a little bit of the creativity and passion that they did have for their job, as long as they could find that balance. So among those three, I guess you can say social media SEO keywords, there was the hustle culture that then led to burnout, that then led to quiet quitting. Now, David and I had spoken about these separately, different podcasts, but the topic is basically the same from both of us in our perspectives, except David does look at the quiet quitting part a little differently since he is the founder and owner of a company. Now, I think also in the media, some of the stuff that we've seen about the quiet quitting, depending on the perspective it's coming from, you'll have a different approach to if it's something that's actually positive for the employee or something that's negative for the employer. So David and I kind of had a different perspective, and I was hoping maybe we can get your perspective on, I guess, the rise and fall from hustle culture to hustle culture burning itself out, and now the quiet quitting phase of the tech workforce.
Yeah, it's always interesting how these things, like you said, they're the social media buzzwords, and obviously they get polarized very quickly. There is no middle ground if you go online and try to read about this. It's always you're either burning yourself out or you're just quietly quitting, which I think it doesn't really reflect what people are feeling. A lot of people do like to work, and they do identify with their career, and that defines them. And I applaud those people, and they do work hard because they want to reach a certain milestone in their lives. But these people usually don't work until they burn out. They just work very hard. They put in the little extra time, a couple hours at the end of the day, but they're not working 60-hour work weeks. That's not healthy. That is not even productive. After a couple hours, you're just not giving the same output. If you're working 10 hours in one day, you're just doing crappy work by the end of those 10 hours.
Yeah, there's no way you can sustain a high level of output on a level that you're supposed to over that long of a time. It's just it's just humans don't work that way.
Yeah, and we're talking about a tech industry where a lot of our work is done sitting in front of a computer. You're definitely not going to churn out 10 hours of productive work putting a roof on a house, laying some bricks. That's just ridiculous. Even though that kind of does happen, but that's beside the point. What I'm trying to get at is that this quiet quitting thing, which is now where we've naturally progressed in the whole hustle culture thing. They're trying to, I want to say, make out what is essentially just doing your job as being something bad. If you're not giving it your 110% to a company, you're obviously doing the whole quiet quitting thing, which just equates to you gave me a contract which stipulated my duties, I'm fulfilling those duties and then going home. And because I'm apparently not giving, the extra mile, then apparently I'm just quietly quitting. That's not really what that is. That's just fulfilling your duties. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you are falling behind, if you're late on your deadlines and you're obviously not doing what you're supposed to do, that is an issue. You are at fault as the employee. You have a duty you need to fulfill. That's why they give you a paycheck every other week. But I don't think quiet quitting is actually an issue at all.
I think the term quiet quitting was created to have that negative connotation because it was a way that someone from a leadership position looks down on someone who's not going to just jump ahead and do favors, go out of their way, run personal errands for their managers or bosses or whatever, because that's almost at the point where a lot of companies expect that from their employees. And they hold the idea of, well, I mean, you can't really expect to advance or go any further up the ladder within your industry if you don't reach out and do a little extra for people and show them that you're a team player. I mean, the perspective from the business owner is also very different from
of course
the employee, and that's where I think not HR, because HR, as we know, HR works for the company, not the person, but if you have a good layer of middle management that is in tune with the, I guess you could say, the atmosphere and the culture of the business and where you want it to be, they can play that both sides between the boss and between the employee, and kind of even the playing field there for, yes, you want a little extra, but at the same time, they've been giving you everything you've been asking for, and you need to give them a little extra space so that they don't get burnt out. You know what I mean? There has to be an equilibrium there that's going to keep it in balance. But the quiet quitting itself as a term, like I said, it just has a negative connotation. Like you're not even trying. Like, oh, there's so many jobs out there that as an employee, I can just pretty much do what I want all day. And if they fire me, there'll be 10 other places that I could just move to and just find a job right away.
It like anything else, they're polarizing the issue. They're making it bigger out than it actually is. I'm not gonna pretend like there isn't, workplace harassment or exploitation. That definitely happens. Certainly happens in the United States.
It's happened to me in the past, for sure.
Yeah, and there definitely are employees where they are actually technically stealing from the company by pretending to work 8 hours and are actually working 3 to 4 hours. It goes both ways. That is an issue. That is an issue. It happens. It happens in every job. The bigger the company, the more likely it is to happen. But as much as articles and social media are trying to pretend like this is an epidemic where people are just quietly quitting, no. And I've seen my fair share of people that are they live to work, and there are others that work to live. And I'm on the latter, and I've had a pretty good experience with exactly what you just mentioned, middle management, people that are my superiors, that they understand that I'm trying just to churn out my work, do my best work within the bounds of my contract, and they make sure that their superiors understand that I am actually a good employee, that I'm giving everything I can, and because I'm not being exploited or expected to give out more than I can or should, when the time comes, when there is a deadline that we're behind for whatever reason, or there is an issue, that I have to stay late, that I have to put in the extra hours, that I have to put in that Saturday or that Sunday, I am happy to do it, because at no point did I feel like I'm being taken advantage. I feel like I'm part of the team, that I'm contributing to the company that is also giving me, a livelihood. And I am happy to help out my team and definitely the company itself. It just happens naturally. It's a healthy relationship. I know I certainly feel that way with my current job at Pixel. And
I would say we're a little bit of a, I guess, phenomenon where it's a smaller kind of tight knit group of people. Even though we are a remote agency, we really try to foster that culture of team. We are a team, and we got each other's back. It doesn't really matter if you're a junior developer, senior developer, project manager, designer, tester, copywriter, whatever. If you're part of the team, then we got your back. And as long as there's that equal give and take of what is expected versus what is output, then it seems to work out pretty good. And I'm sure through that, at least through my eyes, I've seen that anytime there is a situation that comes up where it requires a little bit of a, not quite sure if they're just slacking off or are they just like dealing with something, we're always leaning on the side of, hey man, how can we help you? What do you need?
Yeah.
What can we do? Not like, what are you doing? Why are you slacking off?
Yeah. It's always assumed positive intent, and I think we have a pretty healthy team where that is the norm, and that has worked very well for us. But again, we all feel like we're part of a team, and that if we are putting the extra work and making a little bit of sacrifice, is for the team, and we feel that our team is giving us that back. If I need to stay until 7 p.m. one day, even though I'm tired, I know so-and-so is going to be there with me. He's going to be supporting. He's going to do pair work. And every time, for example, that I've had to work a Sunday, David is usually there with me. Even if he's just there for moral support or just complaining about something, he is there. And he has a family, he has kids, he's pulling himself out of his family time just to support his employees. And that itself makes me happy and completely okay with giving, a little more than I'm supposed to.
Yeah, and there's been projects that I've worked on where like it requires, it's not our fault and it's not really the client's fault, but it's a situation where something's got to be done. But then, like for instance, website's ready to go, but you can't publish it until a certain date. That date is on a Sunday. But you won't have the last little thing that you need till Saturday. Yeah. So what are you going to do? Friday, you're not going to be like, well, sorry. Sorry about your deadline, your grand opening, whatever, just later. No, of course, you'd be like, all right, well, as soon as you get it to me, it's Saturday. You kind of carve out, okay, I know I'm going to have to do this. Probably take an hour or so. And then Sunday, I'll probably have to do this. And, I might need help Sunday if there's something that goes weird. And you get that Slack ping. Like in my situation, it would be like a Slack thing from David, like, hey man, just let me know if you need any help. Doing this now, but I'll be home later at this time and I'm there for you. And then a couple hours later, hey man, are you still working on this? Why don't I buy you dinner? And then he's offered to Uber some dinner over to you or whatever. Sunday comes up, you're like, okay, I know this is a launch day. What do you need from me? And meanwhile, you're like, dude, I got it. It's fine. It's no problem. But knowing that support system is in line.
I feel like this is giving more of the what these people are expecting, what these companies that are complaining about quiet quitting or hustle culture are expecting. You're getting loyalty, you're getting hard work, and you're getting employees that are doing this out of, not kind of cheesy, but the goodness of their heart. They're happy to be a team player and go the extra mile. And you can achieve this with just being a good place to work at, a healthy work environment, balance, healthy work-life balance. And you don't need to spy your employees to achieve this, and you don't have to, employ multi-$1,000 computer systems that are going to allow you to inaccurately predict what your employees are doing. Hire a couple more middle managers, some people that are actually charismatic and friendly and care about people, and have them
micromanagers, middle managers.
Just hire 2 or 3 of these folks, which are going to be cheaper than buying your software and employing a couple more developers just to maintain it, and they're going to be able to give you a very accurate pulse on how the team is doing and what you can do to help out your team. Be more productive, but also be happy about the productivity that they're giving. And you're going to have employees that are not going to job hop just because they feel like the company that they're at is not giving them anything. Which also, that's a whole different thing that a lot of developers mostly, or a lot of people in tech tend to job hop just so they can get more, better compensation. And they do this because, one, well, people like money, but mostly they have no loyalty to any company because they don't feel like the company has loyalty to them.
The culture has not been established at said company to where they're just like, okay, I'll give this place 6 months to a year, and then I'll start looking for my next step. Yeah, I've seen that happen too.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like all these issues that are just becoming like unnecessarily popular and talked about can easily be solved if you just have a healthy work culture. If you create, company loyalty the right way. We can get rid of this whole, with the rise and grind, the whole quiet quitting and burnout. If you just care about your employees, and it's not that hard. No, it's not hard to be nice. It's harder to be not nice.
Yeah, it's actually it's trickier to be devious enough to think that you're going to keep someone in line and loyal through fear. I mean, those days are over. I believe in this. Yeah. I think people have seen that maybe, here in the U.S. during the past recession after the real estate thing, where there was like all the jobs kind of just disappeared, and employers saw that as a way to kind of put their hooks in you and think, well, you're lucky to have a job. And if you want to keep that job, we kind of, we can't afford to hire anybody else, but you're going to have now these 3 jobs. Meanwhile, we're laying off half of our company. So like those days, I think, are over for now, hopefully. And that mindset, that framing of the employer having all the power through fear and manipulation has shifted. And now employees are starting to feel like, okay, we have a little bit more that we can, contribute to the team other than just long hours, extra favors, whatever, as long as they treat us fairly in the same respect. Yeah. So we got David's perspective, the mean, evil Scrooge McDuck who is always going to spy on you. And then we got Juan's perspective. My perspective was along with David's, and I'm just joking about David. I threw that in there for him if he listens to this. So one last thing before we wrap up. A company that pretends to have great culture, but also seem to fall into some negative light by forcing people back to work, has released some products recently that I believe you're a big fan of. And I'm talking about Apple and the new iPhones and the new
I thought about
iWatch.
like 4 companies out of the top of my head. I'm like, who's he talking about? But
I was trying to throw you
sure.
for a loop, an infinite loop.
Oh, wow.
See what I
That's
did
nice.
There? Nice. That campus is awesome, man. I mean, I love working remote, but if I had the opportunity to work at a place like that, like a hybrid at least a couple times a week, I'd probably go.
Oh, no, it looks phenomenal. But then you remember you're going to be an hour back and forth in traffic or in the subway or in the bus.
You'll be driving through wildfires and crazy.
And then it's like it takes away the magic.
That's true. That's true. It's like looking at the underbelly of Disney. This way I insult California and Florida in the same podcast.
At the same time. Nice.
Even though I'm in Florida, and you're from Florida. So back to the Apple stuff. Recently they released the iPhones and the watches, the Ultra Watch. And I know you had to cop some of it. You said, I don't know, did you get both the new phone and the watch, or did you just get the phone and you're thinking about the watch? Or basically, it just comes down to how cool is the Dynamic Island? And I know it's a dumb name, but how cool is it?
I think it's the Dynamic Island. It's a dumb name, but it's a fantastic feature just because Apple saw a constraint that they had that they could not get rid of. They're slowly trying to. And they made something interesting and exciting about it.
Brilliant use of user experience taking over what you can consider a hardware, I don't know if you want to call it. It's definitely not a mistake, but let's just say less than perfect, piece of hardware.
Yeah.
Having a little notch cut out.
I mean, you got to give props to them. It is not that dissimilar from my phone right now, my 13 Pro, but they managed to create enough appeal from it that it feels like a new phone and it gets you excited about buying the new phone. I don't need, the cutout in my screen. If anything, it creates an unnecessary constraint in my display, but I'm not going to notice it. So whatever. But now I got a Dynamic Island. It's pretty exciting. The cameras, sure, they're amazing, but they're not really doing these massive improvements that I'm going to notice on my little phone. But hell, they said 24 pixels. Now I'm excited. And they also
Actually,
gave
they
me
said
purple.
48 now.
Oh, sorry, 48 pixels.
Yeah.
And
but they're doing that in software. Like it's 48 megapixels, but they're bumping the resolution and the sharpness in order to. It's not actually. You're not actually getting a larger photo in raw information, but you're getting the ability to turn the photos into a larger format for output. But the way they're doing it is through the megapixels and then the software. But I mean, when it comes to cameras on phones and the software that goes into making all those calculations, I mean, Pixel tries every year, but in my opinion, they get beat every year by Apple. Their phone software is the best on a mobile device.
It's an amazing camera. It's the best camera you could possibly have at hand at any point in time. The thing is
the most popular camera on the planet.
But everything you just talked about, most people are not going to notice, and they're not going to care. They're just read 48 megapixels. It's like they read 48 megapixels with a cool island at the top, and it's in purple. That's all I need. I'm going to buy it.
Yeah, and the only complaint I've heard about the island is, obviously an Android user who's like, well, I mean, they put it right there where the selfie camera is, so you're always going to have a blurry selfie camera picture because your fingerprint's all over it. And someone, of course, responded because there is no middle ground. There's no conversation. It's either love it or hate it. So the guy loving it goes, yeah, because it's far too complicated to just wipe your phone on your shirt before you use it like you would with a selfie camera, regardless of the island.
That's what everybody does at this point.
It's like, oh, I got to just and then do this. So, yeah, it's really not a big deal. That was the only complaint that I saw, I guess you could say, on social media that got tossed around. Everybody else seems to be like super behind it, and I think it's a great use of UI and UX.
Oh, absolutely. No, I think it's a cool thing. I didn't end up getting the phone. I pre-order. Usually I have it shipped to my house. This time, for some reason, I decided let me just go to the store. We have two stores near my house. One is across the bridge going into DC. The other one's like literally 4 blocks away from my house. My wife was able to get hers at the local store, the one that's a couple blocks away. I was only able to get mine at the one across the bridge. And if you know anything about DC in rush hour, it is impossible to go through that Bridge of Hope and Wonder at 5 p.m., which is exactly when my appointment was. So I saw the map, and I saw it was like 40 minutes just across a quarter-mile bridge. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not going. So I ended up canceling my my reservation and just never got the phone. Been too busy.
So you didn't get the phone just because you didn't want to deal with traffic?
I do not. I can walk from here to the store. It's like about a 30-minute walk. But I kid you not, I would rather not have the phone than jump into that traffic. I was very comfortable at home. It was a Friday night too, so I was not going to move.
Why didn't you just have one shipped to you?
I don't know. I went online after I canceled my reservation and was like, okay, let me see what the shipping times are. And it was like way far out. And I looked at my phone, I looked at my wife, and I thought, let me just stay with this one a couple of weeks. And there's probably going to be a lot of bugs with the UI to be right now, just because it's the first gen user experience on the phone. And then I'll just get mine. Which it's not like I'm missing anything with my big buddy over here, which is just massive.
I could hear it in your voice. This is just a practice of self-restraint for you. You're seeing how far you can go without ordering one.
It kind of is. I want to see how far can I go before I feel like I'm left out. So far, I'll be honest with you, I don't feel left out. But then again, I've been pretty busy, so it's not like I've been able to play with the phone.
Well, I'll beat you any day of the week. I still got an 11, so I'm just happy with iOS 16. I don't even care.
I was
able to put widgets on my home screen and change the picture. I'm like, yeah, nice.
You have no idea how hard it's been not to spend $800 in the Ultra. I've seen it. It is going to look ridiculous on my tiny hands, but I see it. I'm like, I need this. I know I need it in my life for some stupid, uncomprehensible reason.
It is awesome. It
just looks so cool.
Not only does it look cool, it does look, and this is weird to say, it looks like a very high-end, premium, rugged watch that'll do like James Bond type stuff.
Yes.
Like it's cool.
And
it's just cool.
I think that's the appeal behind it. It's kind of like that kid mentality that you see it, you put it on, and you feel like you're just gonna feel cool and adventurous. Like I got this massive computer in my arm, even though all you're gonna do is just I know, and even though all you're gonna do is just look at the time and see notifications. It doesn't matter.
It still talks to satellites.
But still, I can't help it. I really want to buy it. I can't justify it.
You're walking around, people are like, "Oh, so you triathlete, a diver, a skier? What do you need the Ultra for?" You're like, "I'm a software developer, and
I dive into code every day."
Plus, the orange color is pretty nice. So.
That is a pretty cool color. Yes, I do like the orange. But yeah, man, no, I didn't get any new devices at all. It's just the same phone, the same AirPods. What I'm a little salty about, though, is that they gave a pretty nice special treatment to the AirPods Pro case, which they didn't give to the other regular AirPods, because the whole loop thing and the microphone that it's much louder so you can find the case, and also the magnetic alignment with the MagSafe charger. Those are pretty good quality of life improvements.
I do definitely want to upgrade to the AirPods Pro 2, whatever they are. I will say this. I have the regular AirPods. They're fine. They don't have noise cancellation, so as long as you're in a quiet room or whatever, it's no big deal. Yeah. I have the AirPods Max, the big ones. Now, sound quality and noise cancellation on those are amazing. But if you're moving around or whatever, if you're not just sitting in front of, what you're listening to or watching, it can be a little bit cumbersome. And after a while, I have a skinny head. It's a long head, but it's a skinny head. So the way that the headband comes across and the metal, it's tight, but for some reason the cones don't sit flat on my head. They curve in. Okay. They curve in because my head is so narrow. So eventually they start to dig underneath my ears. And there's a pressure point at the top of your jaw. Where if they sit there for a while, you just start to get a headache from them. Yeah,
my wife has the Pro Max, and I tried them on for a 30-minute session once, and they were killing me. I got a headache. It's just my head is too fat, and they just feel like they're squishing my head.
They're very strong. They're very sturdy. Yeah, I mean they're not going to break, but they will crush your head like a grape.
She has all 3 pairs, the newer regular ones, the Pro, the last Pro before this new generation, and the Pro Max. And what she has told me is that between the regular AirPods and the Pro Max, probably the AirPods Pro are the ones with the worst sound quality. They're comfortable to some people, and they have fantastic noise cancellation, but audio is it's awful. It's unbearable. So if you really do need noise cancellation for longer trips, just go Pro Max if you can. Otherwise, the regular ones are probably your best bet for everyday use.
Yeah, so I probably should have had your wife on for this part of the Apple products because she's got better ones than you do. But anyway, thank you again for joining me. Always come through in a crunch. Here. Appreciate that very much. And if you had any questions or comments out there in listening land and you wanted to send them in, you can email us at hello@thebigpixel.net. You could follow us on social media. We're on every social media platform that is relevant these days, even TikTok. And you can make comments on our YouTube videos where you can watch this podcast as well as just listen to it if you want on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever. So until then, we will see you next week.